Today, I'm going to prove something to you. In 10 minutes, I'll not only give you the feeling of 10 books, but I'll also show you which one will change your life. After this video, you'll finally open that book you've been wanting to read for a long time. If you're ready, take a deep breath, because now it's time for the book review marathon, and I'm taking you into the 10 different worlds of 10 books in 10 minutes. Without further ado, let's get to the book reviews. Subscribe and don't forget to like. There are many novels which claim that they are the greatest love story of all time. It is only in the case of this novel that that statement can be applied and be true. The novel is set during the Roaring '20s in America, narrated by Nick Carraway, a man from a well-to-do family just out of fighting the war and looking to sell bonds. He moves to East Egg, the slightly less grand area in comparison to West Egg, right opposite Gatsby's mansion. Gatsby is rich, mega rich, and throws magnificent parties every weekend, which the whole town attend. However, the host is never seen during these parties, and is never completely known by any one person. Gatsby holds a dark secret about his past, and how he became so great, a deep lust that will eventually lead to his demise. The Great Gatsby is in many ways similar to Romeo and Juliet, yet I believe that it is so much more than just a love story. It is ironic that only the idle rich survive this novel, and Fitzgerald, through this further, enrages the reader about the cruelty and the injustice of the world. Many consider The Great Gatsby to be depressing because, in the end, those who dream do not achieve their aspirations. However, the main message that Fitzgerald sends to us isn't that dreaming will lead to despair, but that chasing an unworthy dream will lead to tragedy. Which is better, to have rules and agree, or to hunt and kill? Lord of the Flies isn't your average book, I have to say. Being a reader who loves to dig into books of adventure and mystery genres, upon picking up this book, I thought it would be a normal adventure book. The blurb certainly seemed to suggest this. A predictable setting for a story, a deserted island suddenly inhabited by a group of reckless schoolboys. It's the perfect recipe for an adventure book like any other, except it's not like any other. Now, when I talk about protagonists and antagonists, it's really hard to truly define who they are. For you see, Lord of the Flies isn't just a book about boys becoming independent. It holds a deeper, more subtle meaning to it, making the reader question what it really means to be immoral and the true meaning of evil. I would recommend this book to teenagers, both boys and girls, who want to try something different, to say the least. Teenagers who like adventure and mystery should certainly try this classic. In other words, if you're the one for romance and happy endings, look elsewhere. It feels like it should be illegal to wait this long to read Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles. How could you possibly put off reading such a beautiful, poetic, and poignantly sad novel for so long? No sane person would do such a thing. So, what more can be said about this book that hasn't already been said? It's not just as amazing as everyone in the world says it is. Reading it devastated me. If you don't know The Song of Achilles, it's a kind of origin story. It's told from the perspective of Patroclus, a socially inept young prince. Patroclus is exiled from his own kingdom for an act of violent self-defense and sent to another kingdom to be trained as a soldier. Young Achilles' father, King Peleus, takes Patroclus into his home, and the two young men quickly find each other. Achilles is destined to be the best of all Greeks, and his ruthless mother is always hovering over his shoulder. Those who haven't read this book are missing out on a lot. This book is not for those who seek their worth in the eyes of others, but for those who create their own worth. Jane Eyre is not just a woman. She is a symbol of willpower, self-respect, and a spirit that refuses to be broken. When Charlotte Brontë first published Jane Eyre in 1847, to say it shocked readers is an understatement. Jane Eyre is a coming-of-age story about a young girl as she travels from an abusive and lonely childhood to a young woman working as a governess for the ward of the brooding Mr. Rochester. Through the ups and downs of life, Jane finds a way to create light and happiness even in the darkest times. Written in the 19th century, but its message still resonates in 2025. This must be said about Waiting for Godot. If you've come this far, don't forget to like it. This play is, in the truest sense of the word, a play about nothing. It is the father of absurd literature. Two men wait for a mysterious person named Godot. And guess what happens? Godot never comes. Because sometimes what we wait for will never come in our lifetime. Does that sound a little strange? Then welcome to one of the most brilliant works of absurd theater ever written. At first glance, you might wonder why anyone would want to read or watch a play about two men pacing around a tree, arguing like an old couple, waiting for someone who will never come. But that is precisely Beckett's point. Underneath all this waiting and seemingly meaningless conversation lies an exploration of human existence. And spoiler alert, it's as absurd as the play itself. Nothing happens here, but you expect something to happen every minute. When you read this book, you feel the echo effect. Did I wait this long too? Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple, is a landmark novel that powerfully explores themes of survival, love, and self-discovery, narrating Celia's journey from her days of abuse in the American South in the early 20th century to her journey to independence through the intimate letters she writes to God and her sister Nettie. Reviews describe it as a novel that powerfully explores themes of Black womanhood, sisterhood, and feminism, with a unique epistolary style, love, and self-discovery. Critics describe this novel, which powerfully depicts themes of Black womanhood, sisterhood, feminism, its unique epistolary style, and its unshakable stance against racism and patriarchy, as a profound, emotional, and critically acclaimed classic. A woman's escape from darkness to light. This book shows humanity's ugliest sides, but it doesn't forget its purest side either. Because it is written in letter format, it is both very intimate and very powerful. Halfway through Raymond Chandler's 1939 hard-boiled, highly praised novel, The Big Sleep, the rich and wild Vivian Regan turns Philip Marlowe in the front seat of their parked car and says, "Hold me close, you beast." 80 years ago, that must have had a different resonance. It must have had an edge of shock for the reader. A married upper-class woman throwing herself sexually at a gumshoe, her father's hireling. Today, though, it brings to mind generations of comedies and comedians who have parodied that sort of line to the point that what it raised in me wasn't shock, but a laugh. In minor ways, The Big Sleep is a victim of its own popularity and acclaim. It spawned waves and waves of imitators, bad and good. To read it today is to read it in the context of all those who were influenced so deeply by the book. It's also a bit of a victim of its age. Marlowe, the book's narrator, is disgusted at the two gay characters in the story, and his denigrating comments make a modern reader squirm. Because Chandler is presenting Marlowe as a rare, decent person in a world of betrayal, selfishness, greed, and dissipation, his lack of decency toward the homosexuals is jarring in the extreme. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is praised as a memorable, lyrical, and fundamental romantic poem that explores themes such as guilt, sin, atonement, and the sanctity of nature through a vivid, supernatural sea voyage. However, readers find its archaic language and intense moralistic tone challenging. Critics highlight the poem's musicality, striking imagery, much of it illustrated by Gustave Doré, and powerful allegory about respecting God's creatures, making it a timeless, eerie but profound literary experience. This poem makes the reader feel as if you are alone in the endless ocean. Symbolism, 100 out of 100. Atmosphere, misty, cold, and chilling. One sentence, one mistake, a lifetime of punishment. This book shows so precisely what the carelessness of a single moment can cause that you stare at the ceiling for a long time after you finish. This story is the history not just of a sin, but of an unforgivable fate. The people of the 14th century were more modern than you might think. This book contains intrigue, satirical humor, human psychology, and all the layers of that era. Chaucer portrays people not as heroes, but as they truly were, with their weaknesses, passions, and lies. Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales is a masterpiece of medieval literature, praised for its vivid characters, witty satire, and diverse tales that paint a panoramic picture of 14th century English society. However, modern readers often require good translations to appreciate the humor, themes of love, adultery, and human nature in this work, which balances Chaucer's genius for poetry and character creation with the challenges of Middle English. This was a 10-minute marathon of 10 books. Now it's your turn. My question is simple. Which of these books would you want to read the most? Or what 10 books should be in the next marathon? Leave your thoughts in the comments. The most liked book will be in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, because there are worlds worth reading.